When ransomware hits, the attacker loves the moment everything breaks. The frozen screens, the panic, but the most important part happens after, when the adrenaline fades and you still have to rebuild an organization. Post-incident is the moment teams slow down and ask 3 hard questions: how to keep operations from failing again, how to rebuild trust, and how to handle the financial and legal fallout without compounding the damage. This is where many careers take shape, because what comes after isn't cleanup, it's strategy.
I think the operational disruption, especially in regards to the Colonial Pipeline, there was a lot of lessons learned. I think the first thing that, from the Colonial Pipeline, from that team, they learned is that call plan, right? Being able to reach out, back out to industry and say, we need help. This is an event, something has happened. But it's also pulling in experts to have that awareness. Again, they shut down the IT network. The IT network was the one that was actually the cyber event had happened, and then they shut down the operational network because they were being precautious, which affected everyone else. Having a plan for your team that everyone knows what to do in the case that there is an event, that there is a ransomware attack. Making sure that you have a cybersecurity threat intelligence, right? So defending both of your networks. Having backups, making sure that you have a backup of your data. We practice that in everyday life, right? Our pictures, if we lost our pictures on our phone, we'd be upset, right? Making sure that we have a communication plan, making sure that we also keep cyber resiliency.
The shift is subtle, but massive. Not just can we defend, but can we keep critical systems up through the attack and win back trust?
Any mistake a human makes, it's the best thing in the world to be open, honest, as transparent as possible, and to have good communication. It's about maintaining a good relationship even through the issue that happened. Like communicating, here are all the things that we're putting in place to prevent this from happening forward, right? You're doing everything you can do to earn back as much trust as possible, right? Trust is lost very, very quickly. It's earned back through a series of events and longer term communication, right? Good communication from a company perspective, but also the consumers.
Translation: you need a plan for the public message while you're still fixing the technical issues. That's when the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency comes in.
So in this case, they started a website, stopransomware.gov, to be able to serve as that single source of information on what they were doing to remediate the ransomware issue. So one of the lessons learned throughout that situation was that the responsibility for security cannot be delegated, right? It needs to be an individual that's going to take responsibility and ownership.
Anytime you go through a security incident, to do kind of a post-mortem or an after-action report, to the extent that your lawyers tell you that that's a good idea, there's no situation that's more educational than the situation that you actually went through. And so the kinds of things that might come out of this kind of after-action report would be identifying an element by element basis what kind of data that you store in your systems, and assessing whether or not you really need it, assessing if the threat actors took a number of social security numbers, assessing whether or not you actually needed those in the first place, and if not, purging them from your system, putting some data retention policies and procedures in place so that this sensitive data that you don't need gets rolled off of your system.
Less data, less exposure. The fewer doors you leave open, the fewer ways an attacker can reach you.
Another way that lawyers can come into play is helping you reevaluate your kind of like your employee handbook. So making sure that information security and each employee's responsibility for information security is covered in the policies that they are reading on a regular basis. Make sure that a policy document, but that it's actually implemented, and so that assess whether or not you're providing your employees with adequate training around cybersecurity based on their role. I think also it's a good opportunity to look back. Lawyers are often well positioned in a company because in many companies they touch many different operational units of the company. Maybe the C-suite wasn't communicating with the IT team well, or maybe the COO had kind of gone hands-off on managing cybersecurity and had thought that someone else was in charge of that when really there wasn't anybody there.
The post-incident moment is where written plans meet the real world.
I think overall lessons learned when you think about it with the Colonial Pipeline is having a readiness plan. It's using those everyday practices but in a larger scale. Making sure that we have a communication plan. Making sure that we also keep cyber resiliency. I think cyber resiliency is probably the key here, because one of the things you learn is that attack is probably going to happen.